Should we roll to see who talks first?
What would that be, a perception?
Charisma, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, thank you. Cheers. We're back. We're back, kids.
With that being said, welcome back.
This is the Dadless podcast group. I am the elder. He is HD. This is a triumphant return after, we'll
Couple
call
months.
It has been almost a year. It's 11 months. But either way, welcome back. Together, myself, along with HD, Jose the Dad, the Daddy Dungeon Master, the Nomad. We talk about everything that is encompassed under the umbrella, under the niche of nerd culture.
Yeah.
Whether it be video games, anime, movies, TV.
Comics.
We talk about nerdy stuff. We're nerdy guys.
With that being said, for being on a hiatus for a good amount of time, I think this is as good as it gets for a return because there's nothing, there are things, but I feel like there's nothing that represents being a nerd more than what we're going to talk about today. And I might be wrong, but I feel like I'm not.
We are making moves in pursuit of something that we've talked about a lot.
Since I've known you, I feel.
It's something that it has just been copiously discussed, but it's never come to fruition. Just like the argument of whether a hot dog is a sandwich. The debate has never happened.
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Some people would say it is. I don't think so.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
There's no doubt about it.
There's no need to debate when there's a essay that nobody's countered me on. Anyway.
We are currently pursuing D&D.
What is D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons. Cue some sort of, medieval jaunt here.
So back in the 1970s, this guy named Gary Gygax created a tabletop game called Chainmail. It was kind of like a medieval version of Risk, but pretty quickly he and his buddy Dave Arneson started messing with the rules, and it turned into something completely different. It turned into a role-playing game, and we call it Dungeons & Dragons.
But we're pursuing Dungeons & Dragons. Currently, our guild, our vox machina of sorts, is an eclectic group, familiar faces. It is HD, the Nomad's spouse, myself, Jose, Sergio as well. He was on the first episode. Danny, the Dungeon Master. Not only is he a daddy, but he is the fucking Dungeon Master.
Without him, I don't know what we'd be doing.
But we're starting a D&D campaign.
I think this is the most enamored I've been with something this rapidly. Like you were saying, we've talked about it for what seems like forever, but the fact that it just came out, I don't know, we were having a random conversation about Among Us, I think, and then somebody was like, why don't we play D&D finally? And it just, I don't know, it just lit a spark that we finally caught on, and now we're here. This is all I've been doing for the last week and a half, 2 weeks since we started talking.
It was that proverbial all right, bet.
I think we should start with what it is, all right? Because I think one of the biggest things that I had always thought about D&D when I first started talking about it was this is intimidating. It's very intimidating because it's essentially nothing and anything all at the same time.
The most intimidating part to me, especially since we've been in pursuit of all of these books, especially the player handbooks, what rule set to use, whether we're playing, what is it? I think it's 5th edition now, officially with the 2024 release.
Is that 5th edition?
I believe so. Or if we're playing legacy rules, which sounds fucking crazy. It seems like a very daunting task. Originally, when D&D was created, Gary Gygax, when he initially began creating Dungeons & Dragons, the creation actually stems from old military role-playing games. So think prior to the predecessor or the template that Gary Gygax used for Dungeons & Dragons was military-style gaming, in which it was very tactical. There was a lot of strategy. A lot of those influences carry over to Dungeons & Dragons. Except you have to think within that time, that's what was going on. And so people are using quote-unquote modern or, at the time, present-day battle tactics to, play these games.
Yeah.
And he said, what would be fucking cool? High fantasy role-playing.
And, role-playing wasn't even a thing, right? It's make-believe. That's all it is. It's just make-believe. And that's where I think Dungeons & Dragons has inspired so many titles since, because the whole point of D&D is to tell a great story.
And the influences are across the board. You look at titles like Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate, the essential function within the game itself is all D&D.
Yeah.
Something that I had mentioned in our group chat. the creator of Berserk, there's a lot of like, you know, D&D crossover, a lot of D&D influence. You look at games like Dark Souls, it's everywhere. And then you look at the players that actively play Dungeons and Dragons, or that, you know, use the influence from Dungeons and Dragons across other media. Matthew Lillard, who was the voice of Shaggy Rogers in the live action Scooby-Doo's and the animated, he has a company himself with his partners that I believe kickstart and produce other tabletop games. Mm-hmm. And so you can see him appear on other like campaigns on YouTube. Like a lot of these campaigns and channels that I've been watching, a lot of them include people like Matthew Lillard, Jack Black,
Vin Diesel,
which
was crazy to me. Like
Joe Manganiello, who's just a beautiful man, but is an avid fucking D&D player. Michelle Rodriguez from the Fast and Furious.
I think something that is just cool about it is the fact that the story takes you as far as your imagination goes. So you could have like pre-established campaigns. You can make your own campaign. Or not pre-established campaigns, but pre-established stories that you could kind of make your own. But then you can make your own story and still be playing Dungeons & Dragons. And I think that's the cool part, is that it seems like it's never ending.
The gameplay itself, the universe in which this material exists, it's like you are only limited by the amount of imagination or by the amount of creativity that goes into your story. I've been watching campaigns that are meant to be funny, that are holiday based. I just stumbled across a campaign that did a horror, like a folk horror side story that they've made into like an expansion for the actual like resource when you buy the game itself, which is currently in Kickstarter. I believe at the time of the video that I watched, it was in Kickstarter. It was for Night of the Crooked Moon. Mm-hmm. And it is a folk horror expansion from Legends of Adventures. Obviously, I'm a horror fan, and I've been listening to that campaign.
You were saying horror that entire time.
Yeah, folk horror.
I was just letting you ride with it. I thought you were saying folk.
Oh, yeah,
horror.
Folk horror. I talk kind of weird.
No. I think
I have an impediment of sorts. Yeah, folk horror. You think of like The Wicker Man, Midsummer, anything that has to do with like deities and occults and like
Longlegs.
Occult. Yo, Longlegs.
I didn't watch it, so I don't know. But I figured
Longlegs, not a horror movie. I will tell you that right now. Definitely not a horror movie. More of a crime thriller. Obviously, there are certain aspects of it that make it, that have the supernatural aspects of the story. Definitely play a part, are canon within that universe in that movie. So take that as you will, but I don't see it as a horror movie. I think it is definitely like a crime movie. It's cops. It's the who's who, like why, what, when, where, and we have to solve the case. But also we have an agent that's clairvoyant and some other supernatural things. But I think it's like a strong 7, an 8. I've seen people give it a fucking 10.
That's hard to give things a 10.
It's hard to give things a 10. Unless you're like a real snooty bastard and you like Criterion movies.
Right.
And you're like, watch this, watch the subtle change in look as Humphrey Bogart smokes a cigarette. And he's like, hey, I'm smoking. I don't know. It's a Longlegs, though. I do recommend it.
Are you?
There she is, the almost birthday girl. Oh, but it seems I wore my long legs today. What happens if I...
Character creation within Dungeons and Dragons. If you were ever the kind of person that take like a Tony Hawk Pro Skater, create a character, a WWE game, create a character, create a moveset, create an entrance. There's so fucking much to that.
Yeah.
And big aspect of the game is character creation, subspecies, classes. It's a lot. Character building. To touch on one of the conversations that we were having earlier in our group chat, I'm doing a lot of rethinking now because, the Nomad brought up to Danny, hey, how crazy can we get with using different species, subclasses?
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I had an idea. And I didn't know if it was an actual class, and it's definitely a class. I don't know how it would work out. I would obviously have to create a story for it to work.
Yeah.
But I've seen it used. And so the species or the class is called Warforged. Uh-huh. They're robots. And I, myself, am a big fan of mech-related media, whether it be comics, movies, anime. I want you to think like Gundam, obviously. Movies like Pacific Rim.
Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann, which is fucking amazing. Zoids. I am a big fan of mech-related things. You look at like Tokusatsu. I'm a big fan of Godzilla. Godzilla fights. Mecha Godzilla. He fights and then partners with Jet Jaguar, who is probably my favorite fucking property within that universe. It's just a thing. I really like robots, and I like giant monsters, and I like mechanized things, these characters, these ideas. And so this is happenstance that we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. I have notes of this fucking character, Fred Black, because of my normal like 9 to 5, which is really like a 7:30 to whenever I finish. But as I was driving around making my fucking, doing my Dougie, I was daydreaming and fantasizing and constantly just thinking of stupid shit. And I was thinking of, what is Fred Black? Who is Fred Black? Well, Fred Black is a field reconnaissance evisceration droid. Prototype. Model Black. He is one of one. And Fred Black, because he is field reconnaissance, he takes data, he takes his environment, and he utilizes that to integrate himself. And through that, he builds what one would say is a sort of sentient nature. I mean, he is sentient. His main objective, his function, why he was created, is because Fred Black was made to hunt. He is eviscerating something. We don't know what it is. Humans, species, monsters, enemies. Who the fuck knows? I didn't get that far in the story. But in this case, Fred Black is the main protagonist of the story, and he has to meet character B, who says, you're not as scary as you look. In fact, I think you're really helpful. I don't know if it's a he, it might be a girl. I lean a lot towards female, but there is like an adolescence or an innocence there, depending on what that character is, and they provide Fred with a lot of this growth. And so, as opposed to introducing himself as, I am FRED, prototype Black, field reconnaissance, having to say this whole fucking spiel, and at some point, character B says, your name is Fred Black. It's nice to meet you, Fred Black.
Looks like you got your character.
And prior to this, it was going to be either Guts from fucking Berserk. Someone is just supposed to be Guts. I didn't have a name. It could have been Hawks. It could have been fucking Rock. It could have been Danny O'Toole. I don't know. But it would have just been fucking Guts from Berserk. It would have been this tiefling fucking warlock who was basically just Wilbur Whateley from the H.P. Lovecraft mythos. Mm-hmm. Which at this point, I don't even know if he's a fucking tiefling warlock. Because I did an AI rendering of him like you, and I don't even think he's a fucking tiefling anymore. I think he's just a warlock. He might be a high elf. He might be a dark elf. I don't know.
I did some rendering for your character now. I'll show you. But I think that whole Fred Black thing sounds pretty cool. And I think that's a good point to talk about is like, so yeah, we're talking about a character, Fred Black, but a character falls into certain categories, right? First, you have to pick a class. Mm-hmm. So in this case, your class would be Warforged. There's other classes. Some of the more traditional ones are like Barbarian, Fighters, Cleric, Wizards, Sorcerers. Your typical high fantasy-esque characters. Mm-hmm. Within those characters, each one has their strengths, their weaknesses, different abilities, spell casting. You could shapeshift into animals, different things. Mm-hmm. And additionally, with your class, you pick a race. This race could be an elf, be a human, it could be a dragonborn, which is this draconic-like creature. But yeah, the point is to make a character and give them life, right? Mm-hmm. Just like you would in any role-playing game that's a video game. Think like Cyberpunk. Think Geralt from the Witcher series.
Think of Skyrim.
Shout out to my boy Eli. He loves Skyrim.
Are you a rogue? How do you operate within the game? Especially using Skyrim as the context. Are you straight-laced? Are you very honorable in your actions? Do you follow your direct storyline? Do you stray off the path? Are you chaotic neutral? Are you evil? Again, the limit of creation is limited to the creator. It's limited to the individual who is portraying these characters.
And I think the default that people automatically go to, like I know when I was younger and I was playing like NBA, like 2K games, right? I would make my own player and I would name him after myself. So at this point, my jersey should be hung up in the rafters for all the times that I've named an NBA player after myself over the past 10 years. But that's so, I guess, commonplace, right? You want to do something a little bit different. Maybe you want to explore someone or something that you've always wanted to be, but never had the opportunity to. Now this is your chance. And so I think that's that's pretty cool. As of right now, I'm stuck on this half-elf paladin who is struck by chaos and, I guess, evil doings, who has faced great amount of loss and now wants vengeance. I will save my backstory for Saturday, but that's kind of where I'm at. And so, like, that I'll never actually get to play in real life, but I get to play it out here. And so that's kind of the aspect where it is completely customizable to your own liking.
I think from what I've seen, there is like so much open world building within the rules, within, you know, what you are allowed to do. And really that's all limited to yourself and also the DM, which at the moment, Danny is our DM.
Yeah.
He's our first DM. It's not like any of us have played outside of those who have the experience with the closest thing being like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just like you touched on, I think my earliest introduction to Dungeons and Dragons would have been something as simple as like the cartoon. Because I watched the cartoon. My dad watched the cartoon. He told me about it. And then I saw it, however, like on Saturday morning cartoons. But that was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, and that's how I knew about it. And then, you know, to bring it into, you know, within the context of like nerd culture, again, like I've said before, Dungeons and Dragons, much like Game of Thrones, it's just one of those things that if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Or a must, like it's a must. Real nerds fuck with this shit.
Right.
And if you don't fuck with it, you must not fucking be bout about it.
You gotta be about it, though. You about it? I'm about it. If you about it, we'll say you about it.
It's like, I guess I'm not. And now having the opportunity to like really jump into it, it's pretty exciting because I would like to, in my head, I'd like to fancy myself like sort of a creative.
Yeah.
I don't know that I am. Really? You know?
We're making a podcast.
As creative as yeah, but that's everybody fucking has podcasts. You know?
I feel like now. Hawk Tour.
Yo, she got an agent. And
They ran with it.
I think even her podcast is called like
Talk Tour.
Is that what it's called?
Talk Tour. It's a catchy name.
It is. It's catchy. I'm sure she has a great fucking team behind her, dude. But the one thing that I have noticed, and I think it's sort of like across the board, I don't want to be that broad about it, but from what I've seen, especially like wanting to be in the know and wanting to learn and grow within this game, a lot of channels, a lot of teams, it's like once you are like at the forefront of this niche, especially like being Dungeons and Dragons, being a role-playing games, like that's when you make it.
Yeah.
I've seen, you know, obviously Critical Role has the Vox Machina campaign that is now a show.
Yeah.
You have like Legends of Evantris, which they have a lot of their cast, their voice cast. A lot of them do crazy shit. Like a lot of them are like known voice actors and have roles and do a lot of like amazing things.
Well, even the main guy from Critical Role, I think he's the voice for, what's his name? Leon Kennedy, and for...
Vincent Valentine.
Oh, yeah?
Final Fantasy.
Okay. And also the voice for Cole Cassidy in Overwatch. And I play Overwatch all the fucking time, so
Yeah.
like that's pretty crazy to think about.
It's like really cool to see where they start. And not to say that they weren't like, they already didn't have like a presence, but it's like to see them sort of like streamline into other media and become, you know, popular. Like I've seen these same channels, like I've watched their live like theater performances of them doing, you know, short campaigns in front of audiences. That's fucking crazy. The same thing. I mean, you know, to relate it to like podcasting, I've seen people do live podcasts in front of, you know, audiences. I don't know. It's just, I noticed that all of these teams, they're all like within like really well-known notoriety because of this. It's cool to see.
It is. It's very cool. And just to think of, I think I looked this up and reportedly, I don't know how they got this information, but around 50 million players or 50 million people play this game worldwide. And it's not a RPG game. It is the RPG game. The first and probably the most popular RPG game of all time. And RPG, I know we've been saying it, but I'm pretty sure. Did we mention it? What RPG stands for? It stands for role-playing game. And so with the characters that you create, you know, going back to the whole character creation, what you do with them essentially is completely up to your choice, and you participate in 3 things: exploring, socializing, and combat. So those are the 3 pillars of, I guess, the essential of what you're completing within the story that you're participating in and the adventure that you're foregoing.
So I was watching this campaign last night. It's called The Lost Odyssey. It was from Geek and Sundry. You know, in relation to what Hector is talking about. The scenario that was played out is that a group of ragtag miscreants, individuals from different walks of the realm, came together and were asked to accomplish the task. Hey, this book that I have is sacred. It has mystical powers. I myself know how to advent this sort of crisis that will happen if we don't settle what's going on within this book. I need you to do it as the acting party, but I myself can't just like advent the crisis. I need someone else to do it because of whatever MacGuffin, like you once famously said. That's how I learned the word MacGuffin. I've never heard that.
You never heard the word MacGuffin?
Never in my fucking life. That being said, the party is sucked into the book. They wake up and they're sort of in a daze. They don't know where they are, but they find themselves aboard a ship. And aboard the ship are different people, animals, other living beings. But something's off. It's murky. The party is trying to figure out what's going on. And they now have to react. You know, do we interact? Do we combat? What is going on? Within the scenario, because there is, you know, a lot that you can do. You yourself as a player, you are setting the pace for the story, along with the DM. And what they did was they, in essence, they fucked with the sacred timeline. They fucked with the NPCs of this realm that they were in when they should not have. And it caused a conflict. You know, because of the way that the gameplay is going on, this realm that they're in, this book, is completely myrtleizing them. And that ties in with the use of dice and with, you know, a lot of them were rolling low scores with the addition of modifiers, with the addition of like abilities and such.
Advantages, disadvantages, of that.
It was just not working out in their favor. But one could say that the DM had to play an even keel story to react with the actions of the party.
Right.
Because of the actions that they took within this scenario. And I think a lot of that is really telltale of, again, the creation aspect of this game and what you yourself do, along with the knowledge of the DM. When you have a lot of creative people, it's interesting to watch how progressively like creative they can get with one another. You know what I mean? Like
right.
The interaction within this game.
It's infectious.
It's very cool to see, and that's what I'm curious, like to see how our game goes. Obviously, the very first interactions where it's like an introductory thing, I think we've all agreed upon already.
Yeah.
Because we're all learning it. Like learning the physical game. Again, I don't have Baldur's Gate. I have Call of Duty. If you want to play Call of Duty, we can play Call of Duty, But
even then, like I think I've played Baldur's Gate, right? As someone that's experienced the story. It's one thing to be in that game, and I think there's like 1,000+ ways to end that story. However, it is still limited. Right, there's still a limited amount of things that you can do. And it's a world where if I go replay it again, I know exactly where I'm going to start and I know exactly more or less where I'm going to end. This is just on the spot. This is like battle rapping. Like people just like you just kind of go with the flow and if you have it, you have it. And if you don't, you don't. But it's on the spot and it tests the limits of your imagination. Like you talked about that we haven't really touched on, is the dice, is the Dungeon Master, and what those two things are. So I think maybe let's talk about the Dungeon Master and kind of what their role in Dungeons & Dragons is.
The Dungeon Master, or the DM, controls the pace of the story.
The narrators, if you will.
The narrator. They are setting the pace, the tone, the action for the reaction. They are moving the story along from point A to point B to see where and if we are able to accomplish our set goal within the story. Which also, in some cases, even if the set goal is met, maybe we come to the end of the story and one of us is able to fell whatever obstacle is in the way and we go to grab for the Ring of Chaos, which could alter time and space. And the DM says, hey, I need a check of some sort to see what the outcome of you grabbing the ring is. You know, what action do you take? Well, I rolled a 14. I grabbed for the ring and I take it for myself. My goal is to escape this realm with the ring and to utilize the ring in my own time to change whatever is going on. Well, you only rolled a 14. So it doesn't quite play out the way you think it will. Ultimately, the DM has to utilize that mid-range score. It might even add on to that. It may not just be as clear-cut as like, well, you didn't quite do what you were going to do. Unless you're rolling low and you're like, oh, well, I rolled a 5.
Your hand got chopped off
Fuck,
as you
your
were
hands-
going to reach for the ring.
You touched the ring, but guess what? The ring is just too strong. Your hands are eviscerated instantly.
The ring touched you back in a way that was
full-
not pleasant. Full Diddy.
Or you roll an 18. You grab the ring, and you are sent spiraling through time and space, and you land within your realm after pleading, please just send me back to my time. But you do. You wake up. You sit up in your cot. Your wife that you beat every day. Maybe not. It's medieval times, okay? Your squire is there waiting for you. Say, you were asleep this whole time. Oh God, the ogres are coming. But you have the ring of chaos that you took from this realm. You don't know how you came back, but you're back.
And that is the role of the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master narrates and reacts to your actions within the story. And how do we get the reactions and the actions to take place? Well, we roll dice.
He's gonna roll a nat 20.
A nat 20
All right,
is
we'll go
insane.
one at a time.
One at a time?
One of these will be a nat 20.
Die number 1.
Mine.
You rolled a nat.
Die number 1.
10. Nat
That's
10.
half of a nat 20 on our way up to a nat 20.
And oh, are they not beautiful things? I had to go back and get 2 more sets today because I could not stop thinking
They're
about it.
really so addictive. It's so funny. I could correlate it with whatever you fancy.
Right.
Think of podcasting. I had a small portable recorder first. And then I said, I think I'm ready to move up to something better, which is the current recorder.
Right.
I had a remedial mic at first. Not remedial, it's fucking this one right here. The one that HD is using right now.
No, but we bought, I think when we first thought about this, we bought $15, $20 mics. And I think that's what we were using.
Then
I still have that.
I said, hey, it's time to fucking...
It's time to duel.
Es hora de duelo. But it's like going to Disneyland. You buy a pin one time, you want to buy more fucking pins.
Yeah.
We bought one set of dice.
You want to buy
Kind of want to buy some more dice.
And so dice are an integral part of the game. Dice are essentially what, I guess, trigger or don't trigger what you want to go ahead and do, what actions you want to take within the game. Whether that's actions in combat, actions in trying to persuade another NPC into doing your bidding, casting a spell on someone, or simply trying to squeeze into a small hole in the side of a cave to get in. This determines whether or not you're able to do that.
So officially, per the 2014 handbook, which Hector has in front of him, which I am using a PDF because my book has not come in. Game dice. Officially, the game uses polyhedral dice with different numbers of the sides. You can find dice like these in game stores and in many bookstores. In these rules, the different dice are referred to by the letter D. That must be a One Piece reference. Followed by the number of sides, D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and D20. For instance, a D6 is a 6-sided die. Think of dice. Think of craps. You go to a casino.
Think of your regular die. That's a D6.
That is a D6. Percentile dice, or a D100, work a little differently. You generate a number between 1 and 100 by rolling 2 different 10-sided dice numbered 0 to 9. One die designated before you roll gives you the tens digit, and the other one gives you the ones digit. It's a lot of dice, but you utilize the dice to calculate percentages for effects, for spells. Obviously, the D20 that everybody I think is familiar with, that I believe is like the dice they use the most.
The D20 is the dice that you use the most. That's typically what's going to guide most of your actions. I think aside from the D20, the next one that's probably used the most would be the D8, but I could be wrong. I think the D8 is used for hit points and all that stuff. But I think the D20 is to see whether or not you're successful in your actions that may or may not have a positive outcome.
And it is all dependent. Like Danny so eloquently put it, it is the rule of cool.
Which is a real thing.
Perhaps, oh no, it definitely is. Especially I'm telling you, I'm watching these fucking campaigns. I'm watching how these people do it. It may not just be as, straightforward as, hey, I rolled a D20, I killed the Zubat that's in front of me. It's like, well, you rolled a d20. How do you want to do that? I take up my sword. I let out a victorious roar, and I rush towards the Zubat. In its efforts, it's astonished. It doesn't know what to do because it sees me pursuing it with fervor. Hands above my head, sword in hand, I come slicing down on the Zubat. Its body split in half. Blood is everywhere.
Everywhere.
And my sword slices through the body. It crashes into the earth. I let out one last primal scream. I am victorious.
Or you rolled a D1.
You roll a D. So per the rules, and again to paraphrase, regardless of D20 and D1, there's nothing you can fucking do for a D1. If you roll a D1, that's it.
You're done. You got
regardless
fucked up by the
regardless of ability, I believe like modifier. I think it's just you roll a D1. It's null and void. It's just matter of fact. You roll a D1. Same thing. You roll a D20. Whereas if you roll a mid roll, again, we encounter a bear. I rolled an 11. Well, no, that's still kind of low. Fuck.
In that case,
maybe with a modifier.
So that's another thing, right? Is yes, there's numbers, there's a statistical percentage that you could probably get on what you're doing, but going back to creating a character, the characters that you create are good at some things, potentially even great, but very poor at other things. And so say, you create a barbarian. A barbarian is your typical hoorah, I'm going to get in your face and I'm going to knock you out with the frying pan type of character.
Dave the Barbarian.
Dave the Barbarian.
The Jabbers.
Conan. There you go.
Conan.
But as great as they are at fucking people up in a brute way, they are probably not as smart as your, typical wizard would be. So say you have to meet as a barbarian a wisdom check, right?
Your wisdom may be 0. You may have no modifiers.
Yeah, your
whatsoever.
wisdom level might be an 8, which puts it at a 0. I think that's an 8 score for an ability is a 0. So that means that whatever you roll. But say you get a strength check and you're trying to move a boulder out of the way because it's getting in the way of the party's ability to move forward within the map, and you roll a 10, but you have a 17 strength modifier, which is a plus, or ability score, which is a +3. So now not only did you roll that 10, but you rolled a +3. So maybe you weren't able to lift the boulder completely, but you lifted it just enough for your party to squeeze through underneath the boulder.
Oh, come on. Run by. Oh,
and your barbarian
boulder,
happens to be Arnold.
I have 0 wisdom. Oh.
But that's the beauty of it, is that not only are you doing the action, but based off of the character you created, that has an effect on how successful you are or unsuccessful you are at completing it. So it's really in the die. It's like if the die roll is great, that's awesome. And you see, like if you go on TikTok or if you go on YouTube or whatever and you look up reactions to die rolls, well, then you see all of these either like real somber moments or real joyful moments of people being like super excited for what just happened because they rolled 14.
To put that into perspective, I've seen campaigns that are like, to counter this effect, I need you to roll, let's say, higher than a 14.
Which is really hard to do.
And I've seen reactions where they get higher than a 14 or a natural 14, something fucking crazy. And people, it absolutely, because of how invested you are, how invested you become, how creative the story is, how emotionally like driven you are within it. These roles, these reactions fucking garner like such a, like, people go crazy. I've seen them like mid-campaign, they take out their phones, they rolled a fucking 14. It's like, it's really cool to fucking see. Mm-hmm. I've seen boss battles where they're in, maybe not final dungeons, but they're in like a mid-boss battle. Mm-hmm. And part of the party is done. Or they're injured, they can't battle. Maybe they're affected by a spell, they're frozen.
Poisoned, what have you.
Whatever the case may be, and there's maybe one player left, and they're like, okay, Vecna is right in front of you. You need an 18 or higher to be able to make a critical attack, or whatever. Mm-hmm. MacGuffin. And I've seen people roll the fucking D20, and it's just like the reactions themselves because of the plot, because of all these things that we just discussed, the investment of the story. It's crazy to see. Mm-hmm. Like it's really cool.
Yeah.
But again, like Hector said, it is it is a matter of the dice. Your outcome is based on the dice.
Yeah.
That is your lifeline. And granted, again, there are dice that are specifically meant for the individual to use, or that primarily we use as the individuals as the players. But like some of the more statistical and like percentile dice, I believe like the DM uses more.
Yeah.
More so than we would, if any.
And I think most people that play D&D, aside from the literature, aside from the books, the die is the main thing that they collect and their keepsake to show, yeah, I play this shit. And they're super cool. Like I think I went back to Utopia today. Shout out to Utopia in Modesto. And Simply Unlucky for a very specific reason. But shout out to Utopia in Modesto. They're
like a game store.
A collectible store? Would you say collectible?
So they had trading cards. They had video games, vintage video games.
Yeah.
Consoles.
Warhammer.
They had
tabletop stuff.
Tabletop stuff. They had, dice. They had mats.
I think the only thing I didn't see in there that I was like, oh, that would be cool if they had it, was Digimon stuff. Nothing related to Digimon that I saw. Maybe like a video game, but not anything else.
I didn't notice what the more trading card games they had. I definitely saw Magic.
Mainly Magic and Pokemon.
And Pokemon.
Yeah.
For sure, but I wasn't looking specifically at trading cards because we were like so focused on
D&D.
On D&D. Shout out the store next door because we got there 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
And the daily deals.
They were all right.
Hey, if you needed a air purifier,
$100.
$100.
No problem.
Come and get it. Open box. No refunds.
But no, I went back today, and we went what, Saturday?
Saturday.
We went Saturday, and so now at the time of this recording, it's Tuesday. But I went back this morning just because I didn't think that I had enough die. And I do for what we need it for, but I just wanted more. And I went back. I just spent maybe 15 to 20 minutes solely looking at the die and trying to pick out which one I wanted. I ended up walking away with 2 extras, but it's cool because since a lot of the game is being played out in your imagination, it's nice to have this connecting link between reality and the campaign. And I think that's what a lot of people maybe that play the game resonate with. So I think it's super fucking cool.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I take away from having the opportunity to play now, like a big one for me, like the majority of it is the aspect of community. Like I couldn't tell you enough how much like community, being around people that like your friends, in this case, it's like a weird like amalgamation of like friends, family.
It is family based. Let's say that.
Like we're
I don't know, dude.
We're family, but we're not. We're
both hooking up with people from the family.
We're
make sure to put that in. I want people to hear that.
Oh no, that's in. That's in. I have kids.
I don't, but it's still there.
There's a lot of kids here. Pick one. Take one home. But the sense of community, another thing that is really fulfilling to me is creativity within this game. Again, I've always been drawn to the creative aspects of what one can do, whether it be art, although I can't draw to save my fucking life.
Yeah, can I?
I was a mediocre graffiti artist.
I guarantee you draw better than me or create better than me when it comes to like physical stuff.
I think the most creative thing I do is making these recordings and editing and stuff.
But community, creativity.
The creativity, the aspect of being able to do that all together is like probably the most fulfilling aspect about it. And then the storytelling. I love the fucking story aspect of it. And I love what people do with those stories. And like the varying like emotional spectrums of like what they do with them. Whether it's, I've seen comedy campaigns. I've seen, again, like the horror, because Hector said that I talk fucking dumb. But the horror stories I've seen, varying on emotional, or, like I've seen like very action based, or just like, and I shoot my arrow and it strikes the ogre. And here comes the rogue and he stabs the ogre. And it's just, you can do so much with it.
Yeah.
I think those are like the main things that I look forward to.
Right.
Aside from like if we start getting really into it and we do voices and shit.
Not yet.
I had a voice ready for the warlock. because he's based in like the H.P. Lovecraft mythos. Like if you look into that, the way that they portray these characters, it's always via like 1930s, 40s-esque, like radio, like now this time, and I'm gonna go down to the store, and there's a great out of God. Oh fuck! Like it's like very like old timey. But it's
like baseball announcers back in the 40s.
Where it's like, and here comes Babe Ruth. He's pointing to the outfield. He's gonna strike and go home and beat his wife. Hey, it's like that. Like that's not like that.
Did Babe Ruth beat his wife?
He beat some bitches. I guarantee you he did, dude. I think my dude drank like whiskey all day. He ate like 10 pounds of fucking red meat. He beat some bitches the fuck up.
Dude, those farts, man.
I guarantee you he did. My boy ate like fucking 36 eggs. Bien a gusto el pinche güey. He was fucking just hitting balls and hitting bitches. Babe Ruth. The Babe Ruth story.
I don't think that's how it went, man.
He would point at the fucking corner of the house when he was at home, and he'd just fucking hit his wife. Sapos, dude. And she would fly to that corner, and then he'd just run. He'd run the living room. He'd throw the remote control. He'd fucking just point. And everybody else.
But if he missed, he broke the controller over his knee.
That shit's so tight, dude. God damn. D&D.
D&D.
I just wrote a story.
No, but I'm genuinely very excited about this because it's not something that I thought would come into fruition. I think it was one of those things where we would just always talk about it, but not be about it. You know, and well, it goes back to that very first conversation we had at the very beginning of this before the D&D, right? It's like we could talk about it all you want, but actually doing the action that's 100% different, and that's what I guess gets you results. And here we are. It's now planned for this weekend.
And it's like a very fateful sort of day. Like there's a lot of events. There's the shout out Lodi Comic Con is coming up on the 28th. I believe there is a Renaissance Fair date in Hollister that's going on. Some other things were happening too that I was just saving the dates, but I was like, wow, the 28th, dude, and that's the day that we're gonna play D&D.
Hey, Lodi's Comic Con is on Saturday?
On the 28th it is.
Let's go.
You want to go?
Let's go.
Thought about taking the kids.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing the campaign till like fucking
till a night
7, 8 o'clock.
I know. We were talking about it because it was coming up. I thought about taking my kids. My daughter's gone, but I've taken my daughter. My daughter's gone, and she's actively again participated.
Yeah.
But listen to that episode, feeling uncomfortable with Hector. Yeah, the 28th, Lodi Comic Con. I am a big fan. There's going to be quite a few people of notoriety. Shelton Benjamin is one. He's going to be there. MVP. Some anime voice actors are going to be there. And obviously a lot of these actors have recurring roles within other anime.
Yeah.
So like last year we met the voice of, I forget their fucking names in Demon Slayer.
Who? Was it a Hashira?
It was a Hashira, the sister of the Hashira.
Kocho?
Her sister.
Fuck.
With the side pony.
Kanao?
Yes, Kanao. We met Kanao.
Nice.
There was someone else there.
The English
dub. Yeah, well, obviously. They're not flying actors in from fucking Japan.
You don't know that.
I think that's only at the bigger venues, honestly. At the bigger shows. Not to say that Lodi isn't big. It's actually quite big. I think, if anything, I would say, shout out Ohana Comic Con. They hold really good family-oriented cons that are small, very enjoyable, very affordable. Take your kids to those. If you want to take a step up, go out to Lodi. Stockton Con is then the next tier up, and then think of SAC Anime as the big go-to event. And
well, at least in the area, right?
Within the area. Because then if we're moving even bigger, Galaxy Con takes place in the Bay Area in San Jose, and they have big fucking actors that come without having to go all the way down to LA or fucking San Diego.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I would say that is the tier system locally within the Central Valley of California. That's where we're located, if you're wondering. I'll give you our addresses.
Yeah.
And
shout out to Utopia, man.
Hey, Babe Ruth beating bitches in heaven. Before we wind down, do you have any additional notes?
I think if you are on the fence of playing D&D, just try it. Because I think it's a really good confidence booster. Not that I've played, but just thinking of how uncomfortable I'm going to be being someone that's not myself, I think it would boost a lot of my own self-esteem. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm a very uncomfortable person.
Sure.
And I don't like expressing things to people because it makes me feel vulnerable. But I felt very uncomfortable just telling you Fred Black because Fred Black is this thing that I created while I was at work driving around.
And see, that's the thing is like just that in itself is so fucking cool, and we barely touched on it.
Within that context, Fred Black, that story, it's not even meant for D&D. The Warforged is meant for D&D. Fred Black is the name that I have currently. Something has to be fitted for the source material that we're using. This is a totally different Fred Black. But Fred Black, the idea, the template that I have will somehow have to fit into this timeline, this story, this campaign that we're going to start. But that was Fred Black.
That is Fred.
That is Fred Black. That being said, but yeah, I'm excited. I am very excited.
Shout out to the team, man. We'll see how it goes Saturday. We'll keep you guys updated.
We'll keep you guys updated.
I feel there should be a recurring. It's like, how's the campaign going? You know?
Dude, we all died.
We all died Saturday at 7:30.
Danny said, roll the d20. None of us knew what dice to use. One of us rolled a fucking d1. One of us rolled the dice, but it rolled under like fucking drawer here. A Black Widow bit us.
Somebody didn't bring dice.
So one of us got too fucking overwhelmed. We passed out. If you've been around Toretto,
He's coming to play D&D.
He heard family. Like if you've been around for a while, if you've listened to the show like from its infancy, you would know that it started with myself. That was the introductory arc, and then there was the Nomad arc.
Yeah.
From there, with the addition of the new equipment, came the Jose the Dad arc, and then within that timeline, we had some newer touch and goes from the Nomad before he took his permanent
hiatus.
His having found a relationship, and he said, "Fuck you, nerds," and he left. He's like, "I'm gonna go
get married."
And just like that, I left everything. See ya.
And then it's now the HD arc. And the HD arc is like the most current fucking berserk arc that we're rewriting the whole story. And it seems like we move in seasons, which I'm like, should the show be seasons? Because it seems like from September through like the colder season, like that's when we operate because it's functional. Because in the heat, fucking forget it.
Nobody likes the heat.
We're in a garage.
We're in the Central Valley.
We're in the heart of it. Hey, I said it, dude. If we get to 100 episodes, we'll ride into the fucking sunset. But you know who's keeping us alive? Fucking Deutschland is keeping us alive.
Yeah.
Off Wiedersehen, fucking guys. I hope you guys are playing D&D, whatever that fucking translates to German.
I was looking at like the languages in the player's handbook because I've been reading the player's handbook. And I was looking at the languages and it said, as a half elf, you have proficiency in three languages. Elf, Elvish, one of your choosing, and then Common. And I was like, what the hell is Common?
Common is English.
Here,
true.
Here it is.
True.
But wherever you're located, that would be Common. That language, that dialect would be Common.
Yeah, true. Fucking D&D, it's everywhere, man.
Everywhere.
Per tradition, per usual, what is trending with you? What are you watching, reading, playing, viewing?
Reading.
Everything right now is D&D.
Everything is D&D. I'm reading the hell out of this player's handbook. I was this close to buying like all of the other books and materials today, but I had to limit myself because
they're expensive. It's crazy, dude, how expensive this shit is.
To be fair, for a game where you need imagination, a group of friends, and a pair of dice, I guess everything else is like kind of secondary. But that's besides the point. I've been reading the player's handbook religiously for the past I got it yesterday, 24 hours. But Anissa and I just watched Demon Slayer fully all the way through. She's never watched anime. But
Never?
Never, okay? Like, I think she watched, like, Inuyasha growing up, like, in spurts. But this is the first time she's watched an anime from the beginning to the end.
Did she cry?
Completely enamored with it. Cried so much. Shout out to my boy Rengoku.
When I tell you the impact that Rengoku's death had on my household.
Brother. But she was in shambles. Shout out to her for watching this all the way through. I greatly appreciated that. I watched Gurren Lagann recently. I hate mech stuff, unlike you, who loves it. I can't stand it. But Gurren Lagann, in 27 episodes, did something to me that few other animes have done in a lot more. Watching One Piece, I just started. Watching One Piece. We'll see how it goes.
I appreciate the offer.
Because I just learned about Luffy's devil fruit. But spoiler alert, I learned that the devil fruit's powers is not him being made out of rubber. It's imagination. And I thought that was the coolest thing. You know, speaking about D&D, like I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so now that's where I'm at. I wanted to watch it because of that. That's where I've been at for the last week or so.
It's consumed us.
Consumed.
I feel like right now we're all consumed. Yo, this group chat goes off like at 2 a.m.
2 a.m. And it's mostly Daniel ordering dice that I've ordered. What about you?
I've watched quite a bit. Longlegs, again, I give it a 7 or an 8. It's a crime thriller, mind bender with supernatural aspects. I do recommend it. It's not a horror movie though. Sorry, because people want to be like, dude, it's the best horror movie. I'm all for a horror movie. I get it, but it's not a horror movie.
It's not that.
It definitely is not that. I'm not that guy, pal. It's not that guy, pal. I saw, and I'm sort of late to the game, but I saw A Quiet Place day 1. Oh my Lord.
Don't spoil it.
Good fucking movie. Personally, the personal feels that this movie, like it triggered.
Yeah?
So, yes. It is more than a movie. It is an allegory. It is an allegory for acceptance, for overcoming certain adversities.
Sure.
Aside from like the sci-fi aspects and the aliens and shit, oh God, oh no, they're there. Don't step on a crack because you'll break your mom's back. It is the message, the overall allegory and the message of the movie. It's like, it meant so much more to me. It was really, really good. It just made me depressed. It wasn't even like, oh fuck. It was a good movie. So that Longlegs, Fast 10 was, I felt like the kid that rage quits and puts the remote in his ass. That video?
I didn't watch.
You haven't seen that video?
I didn't watch
the kid, he rage quits playing like Halo or something, and he sticks the fucking Xbox controller in his ass. I felt like that, dude, watching that movie. If I could roll the eyes out of my fucking head, I would. If I could roll a D20 with my eyes, it would have just been rolling fucking
ones.
Snake eyes. You lose. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice 2. I'm calling it Beetlejuice 2. I'm not calling it Beetlejuice. You just did. If you watch the movie, I say it one more time and he might come out. Me va a picar. I give it like a 7. If you ask me.
So it's as good as Longlegs?
It's a different type of movie though.
It's a different 7.
It's a different type of movie. It's a family movie. And then I've been keeping up with One Piece, obviously. It's just like episode to episode. But all of these campaigns, Legends of Evantris, a lot of like the side games that they play, they've done like Warcraft style, like inspired stories and like Critical Role, learning about the game, like its rules, the different aspects of it. Mostly watching a lot of the campaigns is fucking really cool. Yeah. Like I really can't get enough of that shit. If you haven't watched a campaign and kind of want to know what D&D is, I'd recommend, looking up Critical Role. Matthew Lillard, the voice of Shaggy Rogers. Him and his company, they started a show. It's called like Faster Purple Worm Kill Kill. Mm. The basis of it is that you're on the campaign, but you're fighting something that you won't beat. So it's building towards the creativity of how you lose. Huh. It's really cool. It's really, really cool, but it's like, it's just so funny that the aspect of the game is you're going to lose. But how do you lose? But it's like, how do you lose? And like, how do you build up to that loss? And like, how do you make that loss like either really funny or like really epic? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you rolled the fucking D20, but you're only doing 10 slashing damage and you have like a modifier and it only makes it like 13. And you go to strike for the Sphinx, but the Sphinx is just too strong with his archaic magic and it shoots a beam of light that picks you up from the ground, and as you levitate 20 feet from the ground, your party watching you incapacitated, and it asks you one last riddle that you're just not able to answer. And then it just, summons demons that, they rip the flesh from your bones slowly. No one can fucking help you. As you fucking scream, your body goes into shock, and then the Sphinx fucking consumes you, shits you out. Like, it's really funny. I really enjoyed it because of that aspect, that it's like, you're not going to win. And they say, maybe these guys will win, but they just don't win. No one wins. Thank you, HD, for bringing me out of my funk. I greatly appreciate it. This is the Dallas Podcast Group. He's HD. I'm the Elder. We'll see you guys later.
The point of this this game is not winning and it's not killing. It's having the adventure. Each player wins by having fun. So if you can have a good time, you win. You can have fun even if your character gets killed. And if that happens, don't worry. You can always make up another one.